Welcome, YouTube. Alright, we have a really cool special for you guys tonight. I was on a little bit earlier, and I had to end that stream early, but we're back, and we're pretty much going to do a recap of what we talked about earlier and go a lot deeper into everything. Alright, so this came out on Thursday, October 17th, 2019. I didn't check, I wasn't really checking the news on Thursday night. But I checked it out Friday morning when I went on Twitter, and I saw basically Twitter in an uproar, people talking about this, and I had to go and check it out before work, and really cool. So this guy, Deep Prasad, he's saying, so basically the US Army gets to see the science on the metamaterials before we do. Fine, fair enough. But we get to, if we never get to see those results, which I do believe the chances are now seriously jeopardized, we may as well give up completely on the idea of a government-led disclosure. Okay, so finally this guy's waking up to stuff that I was telling him way back when, and he didn't want to hear it and was just, hoping on the dreams, because not everybody wants this technology to come out, man. Not everybody wants this stuff to come out. There's people trying to stop this and trying to prevent this. And then Red Pill Junkie, this guy's always got an interesting perspective on things. I don't get it. Why does the U.S. Army need the materials collected by the TTSA? Isn't it part of the ufological myth that the premise that the U.S. government has collected all sorts of evidence, presumably artifacts also, for decades, and kept it inside a secret base? And yeah, so that's the real kicker here. As soon as I started reading this, I was just like, oh my God. This is what's going on. This is part of the plan. They're going to bring out this metamaterial technology, and they're going to claim it came from aliens and from this source through Bigelow and Linda Moulton Howe or whatever, Bigelow's girlfriend, or his ex-girlfriend anyway. Very interesting. What I think is going on here, now that they've kind of come out with this. In the midst of all this, this partnership with DEVCOM, which is the U.S. Army's Capabilities Development Command, the development command is DEVCOM. There's not to be confused with the gaming convention or whatever, DEVCON I think it's called, but yeah. So they have a development command for their development. And why it's the U.S. Army is kind of weird too, because isn't it the U.S. Navy who's been, patenting all this stuff? Where's the U.S. Navy patents? Oh, that's not the U.S. Navy patent. Where's the U.S. Navy patent? Yeah, this stuff. So we had the U.S. Navy patents, that 4 patents by this guy Salvatore Caesar Pais, P-A-I-S, a U.S. Navy researcher. Now, I had a couple skeptics arguing. Well, not really arguing. They were just being skeptics, like not looking at the Nicholas Copernicuses of the scientific world, but paying attention to the Lord Baron Kelvins out there, telling us what's impossible and sort of thumbing their nose at people like me who are really on the cutting edge and fringe and cusp of science and technology. But anyways, he was saying that, well, this guy Pace, he's probably just some crank working for the U.S. Navy, because why would one guy patent all, four patents simultaneously on, the Tic Tac craft, room temperature superconductors. What was the other ones? I showed this earlier. I had them up. They disappeared. Anyways, so it was it was this Tic Tac patent, and it was also that fusion reactor. So this guy Salvatore Pais. So what's the deal? Is we're having like a couple. I was having an argument about who this guy is and if he's legit or not. This could be part of the U.S. Navy's disinformation counterintelligence, putting out fake patents. As we know, that John St. Clair guy has put out a lot of fake patents that are disinformation. Like that, specifically this one right here, the TR3B patent that came out like 2 days after Ed Fouché died. It was published July 6, 2006. No, that was the publication date, but it was like, it was out in third phase of the moon did a story on it, and Secure Team 10 and a bunch of the big channels all did like a big story on this, like a week after Ed Fouché died. And then all the stuff on the centrifuge engine and the plasma, rotating mercury plasma, and superconductors and superfluids and stuff, all that stuff kind of disappeared off the internet and was replaced with this Biefeld-Brown effect craft, which I thought was rather curious. So I don't know if I'm still trying to figure out if these patents are legit or if they're a cover for other technologies and stuff. They do seem very similar to like the Tic Tac craft. This thing looks like a Tic Tac. I've heard from some people saying that this Tic Tac craft is one of ours. It's a craft that was developed, back in 30 years ago or more. And that they've had these things and fly them around. This is the picture of the fusion reactor that this guy patented as well. So, again, it looks like to me like disinformation, like something that's throwing people off the trail of some of the real technologies. Because, as I've been saying, cold fusion is actually a better path toward fusion. That I believe that these craft use a form of crystallic or lattice-assisted nuclear reactions to power their craft, not a type of hot fusion as is shown in this reactor. So I definitely think that's one red flag for me, kind of. Though the other one is, the other skeptics pointed out, what's the likelihood that this one guy was involved in all these separate 4 fields of research and published all 4 of these things on this stuff? You know what I mean? It's kind of, he's probably a crack. They said he's a crackpot, or but I don't know. It could. There's a lot of other options to consider when evaluating these types of things. But what's really important is the stuff that doesn't stay up on the internet, that doesn't get pushed to the mainstream, that kind of stays in the background and even gets pulled out and disappears into the background, like some of the TTSA stuff that kind of got pulled off the internet a couple weeks before this all went down. So Tom DeLonge had a tweet. I gotta find that tweet. I didn't get that either. Someone's obviously got a screenshot of it somewhere. Tom DeLonge tweet, layered material. So I gotta find a picture of that tweet that he made. Yeah, this is the one. So all these tweets, I think, are pretty much. So this tweet, a lot of these tweets are now pulled out. They're no longer found. The stuff talking about this layered bismuth and magnesium, zapping it with terahertz energy, not given the technical specs on it, but like kind of like anti-gravity. And not given any links or any kind of information. It's just like a freaking dangle. But anyways, I was able to find. Luckily, somebody went and sent me the full public speech of that Hal Puthoff gave, the one that's been pulled down with all the one that where he goes in 2018 that he gave to the Society for Scientific Exploration, and he gave that speech to them in 2018. That's now pulled. You can't find that anymore. It's been pulled off the internet. I found it on Vimeo, but you have to pay for $10 to get it. But anyway, someone had a copy of it and they sent it to me in high def, and that was very nice of them. So I didn't have to. I would have rented it and just copied it from the screen anyway. But I got a copy of that, and I found the paper that I was talking about, and it's the one detailing kind of like more specifics the stuff about the terahertz frequency and the metamaterials, and exactly what the science is on that. And I'll post that up in the description. Hey guys, hey Renee, and hey everyone else there. Hey Mark, Isolt, and everybody else. Thanks for tuning back in. I know you guys were. I know Mark was here earlier, and Renee was saying that she was sad that she missed the prompt and wasn't able to join the last one live. But here you are, guys. So thanks for joining in, and we got 33 people here. I did do some work to get my YouTube channel back in good standing. It is back in good standing. You just have to wait and kind of like go through copyright school. I got the copyright strikes and got my kind of channel flagged because I did like a whole I did the whole Bob Lazar documentary, and I redid it and stuff. Oh, hey, Jeremiah. Jeremiah's here, too. Maybe he'll call in on Skype in a little bit later once I'm done kind of giving this whole spiel. And we can get his thoughts and ideas on some of this stuff. And you guys can hear me okay, right? I'm on my main mic, so it's not the headset mic. All right, cool. So, yeah, this is a cool paper. I had printed this out, actually, and I brought this to AlienCon with me when we set up our Falcon space booth there at AlienCon, and this was one of the papers that just disappeared. Someone grabbed this and made off with it, which and then I lost the copies that I had. They disappeared. So anyways, I was able to find this again, luckily. Interesting paper. This guy, Viktor Podolkiy, also has a lot of interesting research. He's done a ton of interesting research on metamaterials and material science in general. And he's definitely someone with a lot of other research, someone that I'd like to talk to in an interview potentially to kind of give some insights on some of the physics involved in this. But in any case, I want to talk about the physics because this is the classified stuff. It's kind of, I don't know. There's people that don't want this to come out, but we believe that the people in control of this really don't are more dangerous than any people who currently have control of this, namely the Carlyle group, the people that bought out Area 51 and EG&G. They're more dangerous than or if not more dangerous, if not as dangerous as the Russians and the Chinese. And this is kind of like a world peace I'm viewing this as a kind of a step towards world peace. For bring this technology out through the public and for the public, we're going to have we're going to be able to basically it's not going to be, we're going to die in this whole prison planet. They're trying to build this whole setup around us. It's crazy what I've seen. In mainstream academia has literally brainwashed all the scientists and all the young physicists against these two very ideas, like cold fusion and anti-gravity. Those two things is it's so crazy, the amount of brainwashing that's been done, that you can't get people to look at you or talk seriously about these subjects. Yet there's so much academic literature and so much secret funding that's going into researching all this stuff. It really blows my mind. So we know that they spent $22 trillion on the ATIP program, and that had, we knew about these 38 scientific studies that were done as part of that program. But that's, and as I did a video on these talking about these before, and people who know about this already, this is government, this is the Pentagon's research into UFOs, apparently, the stuff that they're putting out there. But as people like me know, who have dug through the scientific literature, papers, the scientists and the amount of literature that you can find on metamaterials and the science behind, these materials, there's a lot more to it than anyone's talking about publicly currently. All the scientists who are involved with this right now are either not talking, or they're involved in some program where they can't talk, or they're being hushed for whatever reason, or they don't want to talk about it because they don't think the public's ready, or they don't want it to fall into the wrong hands, like ISIS watches my videos or something. It was 22 million, I know that, but that's just barely scratching the surface of what's been spent on black budget programs. Okay, I know that ATIP was 22 million. I didn't say that ATIP was 22 trillion, and if I did, that was a mistake. Good for catching it. So, I will get my super chats back. That's my main thing I want to get, is the super chats, so that people can comment and ask questions in the live chats, and also send me money right in the super chat that I can use to fund the new website I'm building for hoverbrothers.com. I've been working on this. I had a couple days off this week while I was doing estimates and waiting for bids to come back and stuff, and I did some work on the Hover Brothers site to kind of update all the stuff from before. I'm still doing a lot of work on it, guys. I almost want to scrap this and turn it into a news website just for all the articles and stuff. because I'm putting together a new website for falconspace.org, because right now it just goes to our GoFundMe page, which we're working on getting some of this descriptions changed, and we're actually putting together a business plan and like a more serious a business model together for the company, and the research that we want to do, and how it's going to go forward and work financially, because Lord knows I can't just fund this all on my own with my own budget. You know, I can barely freaking, in this economy, stay afloat, you know. Yeah, the sticker chats too. I want to do all that stuff. So yeah, Falcon Space is taking off, man. We've already got a ton more donations since I've been putting these videos together and showing videos of what we've been doing. We recently bought a bunch of new stuff, some super pure aluminum and ingots and a melting furnace, so we can start melting it down and making stuff with that. And we got a bunch of videos coming soon, guys, for the Falcon Space website, to show you guys what we're doing with the money that we're raising through your donations. And again, you guys can see Norman Somerville, Glenn Gaston, or you can be anonymous, and we'll announce your name if you donate here. Anyone who donates, Arnie Tokarov, you know, unless you want to stay anonymous, you can. We're happy to take anonymous donations, but again, we're not going to sign NDAs, and we're going to make this a public, open source kind of investigation, because this technology belongs to the people, and if and presumably the people that watch this channel and have the technical knowledge or the capabilities to actually figure this stuff out, understand the capabilities of this technology and what it means and why it should belong to everybody, and not just a few billionaires that probably already have it, may already have it, for all we know, and they're just kind of building this as a ruse, you know. Who knows? I think a lot of these craft that are flying around that people see could be ours. And I've gone back and forth with the different ideas, although it does seem kind of suspicious, because I started off on this being very, you know, into a lot of the UFO stuff, and I've gotten just more skeptical over the years after having been like fooled by so much crap out there, that really convincing crap. But you know, I understand why people get fooled by it and get so stuck and hard-headed on it, like the Bob Lazar stuff. And you know, it's all right if we don't agree on that, because we're talking about real science here, and people who want different perspectives and different information come here for that. So anyways, let's. I want to kind of shift gears here. This was in Popular Mechanics too. They published about this US Army aligning with a UFO group. You know, so this is kind of. I don't know if it's soft. It's kind of like prepping people for disclosure. It's kind of slow. I think what's happening really is that they realize that independent laboratories, you know, out there, like for instance, the University of Rochester in New York City, not New York City, sorry, it's in New York State, and it's all the way out in Rochester, which is kind of like near Lake Ontario here, and I looked it up. It's like a 9-hour drive from Providence, and it would be cool to go there. I might go if it you know, if it was right. If I made contacts with people there, which I haven't done yet, but if I made contacts with people from the university, and then I'd go out there to do an interview with these guys, especially to talk about this polariton. The laser and stuff that they're doing, this negative mass quasi-particle and the polariton lasers that they're building and that stuff. Really cool stuff. It has a lot to do with these types of left-handed metamaterials and these types of layered nanomaterials, and the effects that happen in these, because you polarize this energy. You basically pump these states in this dielectric strongly enough, and it creates these polaritons, quasi-particles, which have a negative mass. They behave like they have a negative mass. And that's because antimatter actually falls up instead of down. I don't really know that, but it's for a fact, because I haven't done the experiments myself, but I've seen a lot of stuff about the research that goes on into this gets classified and gets shunned, and there's been a lot of stuff that's been done. Does antimatter fall up? And I think it does. I think antimatter is anti-gravity. That's my hypothesis for the present time, and that what you're essentially doing with these materials is you're creating these polarized states, which polarize the vacuum and bring out positron-electron pairs. They essentially create a layer of positrons or antimatter across the whole surface of the craft, and that's sort of how the effect. It's something to do with that is how the effect works. I've seen a lot of other videos of people trying to explain the effect and stuff. I think Jack Sarfati's are probably some of the best out there, or closest to the thing. Although I don't agree with his need for a supercomputer to do all the, to algorithmically do all the photon matching. I think it can be done with metamaterials and super lenses and the kind of optics that you can build with these type of technologies. I think the optics would do that computing, or supposed what he's referring to or wants to call computing in his models. I think that that super lenses could take care of that in itself. What I also thought was interesting is his talk about what are called Froelich condensates. Have you ever heard of these? It's Froelich condensates. Very interesting stuff, and related to these this guy Herbert Froelich. A lot of people have researched this stuff. So again, this pumped state. Where's the Froelich condensates? Very interesting guy, but apparently it has to do with a lot of this has to do with telepathy and consciousness, kind of, which is interesting because apparently there's it's a situation where you can control things with the mind, and and I thought that was interesting because I started finding stuff on this, and I was really skeptical of it at first. But I remembered in that ATIP study list right here, right in the ATIP study list, it talks about one of the things it briefly mentions is field effects on biological tissues. No, that wasn't the one that I'm talking about. It was the no biomaterials. No, it was towards the end, I believe. Here it is. Organizing quantum computers and cognitive limits on simultaneous control of multiple unmanned spacecraft. So these cognitive limits. So they're doing a lot of work with cognitive control of unmanned spacecraft, where they can basically control a drone or a craft with your mind. It's how to pilot and fly these things with your brain without actually having controls. And it's kind of like these things that can understand these effects of consciousness, and then you make these decisions consciously, and it affects things in the real world based on this interesting what Wheeler talked about, John Archibald Wheeler. He talks about that quantum eraser effect, where the path of light, the path that light takes actually takes both paths and then decides after the fact which path it took. Or it takes all paths according to the path integral model. It takes every single possible path, and then statistically it finds the most probable or easiest one, and then takes that in retrospect. Which kind of is interesting because it's like it's as if you could set up a path where either path, because you could set up the probabilities for the wave function collapse in this sort of experiment, right? For that quantum eraser. It's similar to the quantum eraser. It's not quite. It's similar to the double slit experiment too. But it's basically like you make the probabilities be 50-50 for it to go either this way or this way. So that way it's just an even dice roll of which path it could have taken in retrospect. And then you tweak that equation, because then you tweak the probability with your conscious mind by saying, well, I wanted to have taken this path or something like that in your head. And because of that conscious effect in your mind, it actually it gives one path a higher probability, and it ends up taking that path because of that conscious decision. So it's kind of like a way that you can it's a switch that you can do with your mind. It's a way that you can use quantum entanglement and literally the effect of consciousness, the observer effect, which is a real quantum effect, where you use this observer effect and that decision making to actually, it's a switch. It's a way you can control a switch for something inside with your mind. And so they have, it's interesting that if you were able to couple something with your brain waves to another device, that you could have it affect that, so that one brain wave would make that 50%, jump to 50, to a higher percentage on one of those wave functions, thus affecting the wave function collapse. So it's based on some real physics, which I thought was really, really crazy and interesting at the same time. But yeah, this guy Froelich, he's got a ton of papers and stuff, but it's based on this whole idea of that consciousness has this, and this observer effect has more to do with this phenomenon and understanding this technology than we realize, because it's similar to how the I don't know if it has anything to do with the with that, but anyways, I'm trying to read all this stuff. I know I need to write a book, dude. If I could just take a month, I need a year to take off of work to write a whole book about all this stuff. It's insane. And yeah, that stuff's cool. That stuff's new. I haven't really researched it well enough to fully understand it or how to actually build it. But it does seem like a really cool concept. And could have to do with how they control these craft with their minds. At least I thought that was interesting. But anyways, Wikipedia, the same website you told it. Dude, Wikipedia is good to a certain extent, okay? It's only as good as so far as you can throw it, all right? I told you not to trust articles, don't do research on 9/11 conspiracies and then just read the Wikipedia article and be like, all right, I can trust Wikipedia for that, right? But technical information or physics, where it's like a physics thing, it's really hard, because the people who you don't understand is that there's people who edit Wikipedia. It's no one person. It's a whole public website that lots of people out there edit, okay? And they've actually released something I thought was interesting, now that you mention it. FBI and CIA computers editing Wikipedia. So someone did a study on how CIA and FBI computers are used for Wikipedia edits. And this was old. This was old. So there's a whole page on conflict of interest editing on Wikipedia here too, that you guys can check out if you want to learn more about that and stuff. But it's really interesting. So a lot of these people, in the CIA and FBI edit Wikipedia regularly and go on to make sure that certain stuff gets edited out. But that's if you're researching stuff on 9/11 or conspiracy stuff, like real conspiracy stuff that they don't want you to find real information on. That they do that. So that it's not the same as scientific information like this. if I were to go on, if I was from the FBI or the CIA, or it would probably be the CIA or the NSA who would edit that kind of stuff. They wouldn't be editing this kind of stuff, and at least someone in physics would see that and catch it and be like, no, that's wrong, you're wrong, and they would fix it. You know what I mean? And so it's a little bit different with scientific information when you're trying to learn stuff off Wikipedia. So in any case. Yeah, there's a couple pages. Yeah, so yeah, for example, that's a good point, Jeremiah. The Wikipedia page on mass. All right, it's just wrong. It's just telling you the basic their version of mass. So if you want to really know mass, there's some much better papers that you can read. And what's that one by Bernard Haish that I had? Okay, so teleportation physics study, very cool. Where's the Bernard freaking Haish? This one, principle of equivalence. Here's the one. This is the paper that talks about mass. A really good explanation of gravitational and inertial mass and how it works. In any case, Jeremiah, you want to call in? I'm on Skype if you want to do a call. And if anyone else would like to, you can always add me on Skype. I'm Jeremy, the AlienScientist, on Skype, and talk to me. We'll get some more people on if people who have more interesting information and resources to share to this whole discussion. I might clip this up. You know what? Let's just audio. Hey, what's up?
We are live. Can you hear me all right?
Can you guys hear?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, you should be able to hear you. This is the part of the paper that he talks about, like those metamaterials and stuff, and it's why I'm gonna go back to this and replay it just so we got a copy of it here.
Cool. I haven't seen this yet, so news to me too.
Yeah, I don't. Again, this is fair use. Oh, I can't hear it at all. I have to. There we go. There, now people should be able to hear it.
Oh, I did not know about that function.
Well, it
enables the sound output on your computer to be transmitted through Skype. Is that what it is?
No, this is the streaming software, right? And it's picking up my desktop audio. So Skype right now, my desktop audio, this thing's set to my headphone audio. So
I wonder if they've got a version of that streaming software for Mac. That'd be really cool.
They should. OBS.
Nice. I'll check them out.
Yeah, it's free. A lot of people use it. So yeah, this paper and this stuff I was trying to find it. This is the paper that disappeared off our table. I was talking to a lot of people about this. Very interesting stuff, like it's kind of crazy. It's like, why did they have Tom DeLonge go on Joe Rogan and like totally butcher the science on that? Like, he was talking about the terahertz and the frequencies, but he just had no clue what he's talking about. And he's showing the videos of that TR3B that was obviously fake, that Joe was like, if I saw that on Hollywood, a movie, I'd want my money back. And
most of these technologies, including the Elzevon's aluminum stuff, the phenomena of the electron valence flips in their half-spin integers is something that I've been looking into now, maybe mainly because you guys are working on it so heavily. I'm still doing more on the TT Brown and impulse system stuff, but from what I understand, if you've seen how like a bacteria moves or like a centipede moves and how its legs kind of transition across and that only certain points are touching, when you flip these valence electron bands by inputting a signal at the correct point, at the correct phase and direction, and the influence of the external magnetic field is already polarizing all of these valence spins within these metamaterials, or you could just simply say super pure materials that have the correct atomic properties, they sort of crawl around as these waves travel across and the electrons flip all in unison. They create these almost leg-like moving electromagnetic waves across their surface. Sort of like if you were to tap a large metal bar with a mallet, and you can imagine the way the sound wave would travel down that mallet. So these tiny little legs will move along. I'd say probably a millipede is a better example. But they'll move along, and this is how the electromagnetic fields travel on the outside of the material. And it's not so much that it, per se, loses mass, but it produces a force which gives it the appearance of losing mass. And you can flip it in the other direction, and you can actually see an increase in mass as well.
Like my friend told me they're called xenic surface waves. Another word for them is actually surface. It's similar to surface plasmons.
That's exactly what's going on. So as those little electron valences flip because of the input of the EM wave disrupting their already pre-polarized magnetic influx, where they like to line up with that magnetic field that's traveling through them, as they do this, they have to fight against the external magnetic field that's already there, and so the flip of electric potential becomes an electric wave that travels through space and time, and that saturation, the mass equivalence of the wave that's traveling on the outside periphery, the surface waves, their equivalent mass produces a counterforce where they're pushing against that virtual mass, that electromagnetic expended energy that's radiated outwards. And it's finding that perfect frequency at which we can get these things to ride along in these waves, because if we have the wrong frequency, you'll have waves coming from both directions and they'll cancel out. So this is that whole Lamore frequency, trying to figure out exactly how fast you have to input the microwave energy and how strong the polarization of the flux needs to be in order to cause this phenomena. Because a stronger flux will equal a slower moving field across the surface, but it doesn't necessarily equal a lower propulsion force. It just has to be within phase.
Right. So here the definition of a surface plasmons are coherent delocalized electron oscillations that exist at the interface between any two materials, where the real part of the dielectric function changes sign across the interface. Yeah, so it's basically these are any kind of it's a surface plasmon because it's wherever there's a surface of one material interacting with another, whether that's glass on air, or these metamaterial on metamaterial, or bismuth on aluminum, or
which brings to another point I was thinking about, which is in the vacuum of space, we don't have any ionizable material in which to create this plasma. So when we run these things in atmosphere, and my own experiments also demonstrate this, the outside glows pretty brightly with a nice purple corona, and you can smell some ozone production. That's all because it's in atmosphere, but in vacuum, it turns out that electrons will fly off the surface of this material, travel on the outside periphery, and then re-enter it at a different location. And this is how some of the waves are cycled. So you have to have this continuous you have to move the electrons and capture them at the end of the cycle and then re-inject them. Otherwise, you're going to be charging yourself up positively, and eventually you're going to run out of free valence electrons to use if you're expending them all into space. But yeah, it's a pretty self-contained system. As long as the flux is strong enough, the electrons will always pull back in because they want to follow that curve that's being exerted on them by the force of the B flux field.
Interesting. Yeah, and what frequency do you think the waves emitted are usually? They're usually in the.
It depends on the mass and the type of material, and it also depends on how many half integer or 1.5 integer spins there are. So generally, we're finding that in materials in the grams range, fairly small things, maybe not more than 2 inches long, not more than 1 inch wide. Almost everything I've seen so far is into the gigahertz range, anywhere between say 1 to about 12 gigahertz seems to cause this Lamore precession in the valence flips. But I would imagine that with larger materials, you can use significantly lower frequencies because you have a much longer path for things to take. Like, say, on the outside of the hull of a craft that flies, you may be down into, the 500 to 800 kilohertz range or something lower.
This is really cool. I'm watching it. I just looked up some videos just to show people like glowing balls of light UFO, and I'm looking at this really, really cool one from RT in a Siberian field. It says it's ball lightning.
That is quite bright, isn't it? Wow, and look at the way it moves too.
It's changed.
It
It changes color from that, like
power lines. But wow, it's bright.
It's like that really like bright blue, and then it sometimes it changes like color for like a frame to that orange. It's really weird. Ball lightning is a very interesting phenomenon too.
It is. The blue is caused by the nitrogen excitation and ion production of photons. And the oranges are caused by water being evaporated, turned into its proponent parts, hydrogen and oxygen, which burns and produces a bright orange glow when combined with the nitrogen excitation. At least that's what we found in our lab experiments. We could get quite a different color shift when we just sprayed a little moisture from a spritzer into the flame, into the plasma flame.
And they've created this in the lab. People are able to they figured out how to produce ball lightning in the lab, right?
I seen the Russian experiment where they use silicon discharge for high capacitor or high energy capacitor experiments. They'll slam a bunch of energy on the order of 2,000 or more joules into a block of pure silicon, and the silicon will produce vaporous glowing orbs that fly out and roll around on the floor back and forth, but I don't know if I would call it ball lightning. There is a theory that ball lightning is created when a high energy lightning discharge strikes the ground and silicon present in the soil is quickly evaporated, and because of its properties as a gas, it can maintain a plasma state for quite a significant period of time. But there's also another theory that the magnetic fields produced by the silicon expenditure from the soil will wrap around each other and create this sort of loop where they'll just burn up energy until they eventually run out of this internally pulled magnetic flux that they have. But again, it's all theory. This I don't consider ball lightning. These are highly excited semi-gaseous glowing orbs of silicon, and they're rolling around on the floor, and they do act very strange. They act kind of like ball lightning, but as you can see, they don't have any levity to them. They're clearly quite heavy and being pulled down by gravity. And I haven't seen the tendency for them to pass through objects or do other strange phenomena like a pure gaseous ball lightning might do.
Interesting. I wonder if any of this UAP phenomenon, unidentified aerial phenomenon, is confused for ball lightning, or has been.
Ball lightning is still quite the mystery. It's hard to even define what we want to call it, because there's many different phenomena which could be described as ball lightning. In my opinion, real ball lightning is one that you have an independent plasmoid traveling through some physical volume of space, and it's capable of lofting itself, or it doesn't really seem to be affected too much by gravity. It is affected by wind currents. That's one thing that I've read on a couple hundred reports that I've gone through and looked for ball lightning. Any replications at all. But I consider ball lightning to be a self-contained system that doesn't require other external input, and it's something that kind of self-extinguishes and flies around. So these other rolling around on the ground effect or stuff like that, I don't consider the same thing.
And these other guys talking about this, it's more like a Jacob's ladder. Like the effect that they're talking about with what they've created. That's not really ball lightning. It's kind of like a Jacob's ladder. The effect that it ionizes the gas high above it, and then the gas rises.
Are you talking about that sort of mushroom cloud type thing that
No.
you just watched?
Is
That little plasma ball that flies out of the water?
Not the plasma ball that flies out of the water. I just put it on the screen. It's this one right here. It's like a Jacob's ladder of it's a high voltage discharge. So what happens is that it ionizes the gas, and then it goes up. It rises up because it's the path to.
Right, that's an entirely different phenomenon. That's just a standard electric arc. But you did show a video just for a split second where it was another demonstration KVA Effects had put together, where they have 2 electrodes placed into a vial of water, and they discharge capacitor system through that, and it produces just enough HHO, where as it rises up, it sort of creates this plume like a little mushroom cloud. And it looks very much like what would happen if you put a lit match in your microwave and turn it on. You have these plasmoids that are created. So they found a way to do that without the magnetron energy by having it rise up. It would be KVA effects plasma, KVA effects ball lightning experiment. It could be.
KVS effects.
KVA.
Try plasma ball lightning. Okay. These guys right here on the left, plasma ball effects, KVA effects. That's them. These aren't the Thunderbolts guys, are they?
No, these are totally different than the. I know who you're talking about. Architect.
Yeah.
Yeah, Architect came through Steve Ward. I've worked with him, and I've talked to those guys. So it's, well, with the whole Tesla coil thing going on, we've kind of all been connected in that way, because there's not too many people pushing the boundaries on it.
Right. Interesting. Okay, so here's their experiment right here with the ball lightning.
Yep,
It kind of travels up. Yeah, it's almost like a Jacob's ladder, almost. You know,
it's a really beautiful effect, and it does demonstrate 2 factors of ball lightning which are important. It demonstrates the conversion of water vapor directly into a catalyst fuel, which can maintain the heat necessary for the plasma, and it also demonstrates the high nitrogen excitation in the atmosphere, and that's where you're getting your nice blues from. It's a beautiful effect, and it does touch on ball lightning, but I think that the energy levels are so far below what would really be required to maintain that kind of energy. The magnetic flux is produced under the water, and you only have the gaseous excited cloud rising up. You would have to put a ton of magnetic flux into the atmosphere, enough so that it could combine its own fields and start to wrap around itself, sort of like a flowing torus, but quite a bit more complicated.
Yeah. Okay. So Jeremiah was on here a second ago. If you want to comment in the chat again, I don't know if you're still in the chat, Jeremiah. So
I'm looking at it. Let me see, which comment would you like me to?
Yeah. Just comment. Just comment and be like, "Hey, Jeremiah here," so that people can go check out your YouTube channel. Right through the link, they can just click on your name right in the chat. So it's his channel is what is it? We Are the Technicians, or Join the Technicians?
Join the Technicians.
Join the Technicians.
Yeah, I haven't posted anything there yet. It's something that's coming soon. I just ordered, like I mentioned earlier in the chat, some titanium dioxide, and I'll be posting some experimental results of that. But that's got to come in yet, and it's still, we're looking at least a month out for that. So there's nothing interesting there yet on anti-grav. There are interesting projects that you can build, but it's been somewhat of an abandoned channel for now. It's going to come back in a big way very soon here.
Yep.
Let's see, it's multi-electricity, metallic ball. Yeah, some of the metals I do believe are showing up in there, and I think that's where you're getting your deep reds from.
Oh, no, I don't think you're on the same account as you were before. It was on here before. Join the Technicians is up here. But here he was, right up here. This guy. You guys can see. But anyways, I'm gonna link in the chat to your YouTube channel right now.
Cool, thanks.
Where is this? So much stuff I was watching. I was watching Kevin Moore debate John Lear and Bob Lazar. I was watching this really awesome debate with Mick West and this dude Theory QED is his channel, and he kind of.
Let me throw this out here real quick for anybody watching that knows of a successful ball lightning replication experiment other than the ones that we've just showed. I'm extremely interested. So, if you want to send me an email at jointhetechnicians@gmail.com or go on the Facebook page, Facebook.com/jointhetechnicians. I really would like to see these experiments, because if somebody else has done it, yeah, I would also like to try to replicate some of these things too and learn more about ball lightning, if anyone out there knows.
Oh, Dan Benkert's around, man. I talked to Dan today. I told him about this stuff that's going on. He didn't even hear about the that new news with TTSA. So he was like, "Oh my God, I can't even believe I haven't heard about this yet." You know, like, and But I was talking to him a little bit, and as soon as I said it to him, because I already knew what I thought about it, and he said the same exact thing. He's like, "Oh my God, they're gonna pretend all this material came from TTSA, and they're gonna cover up all the shit that the Army and the Navy and the military already has that they've been studying for years and years and years." And I don't know. I really think it's hard for me to believe that those rural farmers out in Roswell, New Mexico, came up with the descriptions of the materials that they did back then, because it would have been it's beyond like sci-fi for them to be that close to like describing some of the materials that we now know of and talk about, and those materials didn't exist publicly, or at least we didn't have the capabilities to produce a lot of that nanotech back in the 40s, late 40s, early 50s. So
No, I mean, it wasn't even until the 50s that they started to screw with fiber optics, and that was pretty revolutionary.
yeah, for real, it was. It's been quite a ride. So my whole thing is when did they figure it out first? We've got all these studies. We're sharing our notes right now on all the different anti-gravity studies going way back. The Alzaphan was I thought was one of the most interesting and easy enough to replicate. That we started with that, but we're moving on quickly to do other experiments and gain some momentum to really. I want to really get into this metamaterial stuff, because I don't know, from the research I've done, I don't think they really like nailed it or figured it out until like the 90s, 80s, 90s. I'm saying, but there's other people I've talked to.
No, I
Like,
agree.
no,
They people observed the phenomena long before that, but they didn't really understand what was going on the atomic scale. And getting that knowledge is going to be extremely helpful, because then we can start to engineer this phenomena in the materials that we use and not just in the devices that we use to power them.
right. I think that there might have been some low scale versions of the effect that were observed, maybe. I don't, but it's hard to say with the Biefeld-Brown effect. Do you think if they got the energies high enough that it would polarize the vacuum and create a similar kind of effect? It's possible that they stumbled upon it, but again, the only way we can really be sure is to really go through and do the experiments and really nail down exactly how the effect works, how to produce it, and then how easy is it or hard is it, and kind of we can judge from there. Do you need?
It's surprisingly easy to reproduce some of the effect on a small scale. It's surprisingly difficult to engineer an entire system where everything works in perfect unison to amplify the effects.
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah, the Thunderbolts people, I think they're kind of nutty. I was making sure. That's why I was asking about that. I wasn't making sure that those weren't the Thunderbolts people. Yeah,
You're talking about the Thunderbolts project?
Yeah, someone asked, "What does people think about the Thunderbolts project?" And this guy
I
said,
actually think that they have a lot of good information on the Thunderbolts project. I don't necessarily agree with them wholeheartedly, but I've watched quite a few videos of theirs, presentations, and they draw on some important points which I think we need to be thinking about. If you watch them for no other reason other than to challenge your assumptions about how the larger scale of space works and how different planetary bodies interact, then at least it challenges your preconceptions, and if nothing else, you can look into it and learn something by being presented with these challenges.
"Definitely, man." So, what do you think about them TTSA pulling down? That one technical lecture that Hal Puthoff gave. It's like the only thing they've ever put out that's been close to like, real scientific or technical disclosure. And then they pulled it down, and then just a couple weeks ago, like, why do you think they did that?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't read all the information that they posted, so I couldn't really give you a merit on what specific thing it was that they thought was a threat. But I'm not surprised to see it, because this is something that I've been fighting the entire time. This is why I download just a holy boatload of stuff, and I have an external hard drive that I keep things on, because the stuff does disappear, and you find something super fascinating, you just might as well save it. And if you delete it later, great, but save it, because the stuff goes away.
Yeah.
Usually it's that something got a green light to be posted, to be publicly disclosed, and then after the information was reviewed, it got the red light again and it was pulled back down. And who was responsible for this stuff, I have no idea. Not even guessing. I just know that it's a trend that I've seen again and again and again.
Yes, indeed. Especially when you get into like the real nuts and bolts and the engineering, scientific information, technical information. That's like, the devil's in the details, man, and it always has been, and that's why we like talking to people like you and bouncing ideas around with people who are real into the details and stuff. Yeah, the electric universe theory. They have some. I don't think they have the right idea. I don't think. I've watched some of their stuff, but I don't think they have the right ideas about these advanced physics. It seems like a bunch of people trying to rewrite Einstein and rewrite already really well accepted theory and trying to go against the mountain of scientific literature with really nothing, not enough understanding of it to really do that. Where it's really, I think. Are you serious?
Yeah. You're not hanging out with me. Make sure you guys set all up too. Thank you. Bye. Love you. A kiss?
Yeah, I'm gonna come over here.
Bye.
Bye.
Have fun.
I will. So, anyways, antimatter. Man, I think it's almost. Do you think these craft are producing antimatter?
I can't really weigh in on whether I think they are producing antimatter. That would be outside of the scope of what I've studied. What I can tell you is that you don't need antimatter, and you don't need to violate any of the current conventionally accepted electromagnetic physics in order to produce anti-gravitational effects.
Yes.
All of this stuff is well within what we already have from equations that have been around for over 50 years. It's proven that there is an asymmetry in electromagnetic transmission and receiving of signals. For example, if one electron is traveling straight towards another electron moving in a tangent to it, so imagine that you're walking toward, you're on a crosswalk and you're walking towards the intersection and a car travels past you. So if you're that electron moving towards the intersection, the electron that's traveling past you will exert a force on you, causing an upwards lift that is a direct result of the Lorentz transform. But ironically, your motion towards the intersection and the car traveling past you, the electron that's traveling past you will not experience a force from your motion. So there's an asymmetry there where you can produce a force without return or expulsion of propellant, and it's electromagnetically sound, something that we already understand. And this is where the whole study of radiated antenna physics comes from, where you have these weird fields that show up really, really close to transmission antennas, and you have to get outside of that boundary in order to fully have the fields combine into a quantified electromagnetic wave. So electromagnetic waves happen after all the fields have basically combined. It's sort of like looking at the surface of a permanent magnet. You have trillions of electron spins inside that molecular structure of a permanent magnet. And these trillions of electron spins, each electron spin aligned in its same axes, is producing an external transmitted or radiated electromagnetic wave. And all of these things line up to produce a single uniform field called the H field, which occurs outside of the physical space of the magnet. But you have a different type of field that occurs directly at the surface of the magnet, and it has different properties than the H field that we all interact with. The H field is referred to in physics as the magnetic field, but there's secondary and tertiary fields that also exist near the magnet that are different. So this is something that we need to understand: is magnetic fields are not this all-pervasive thing, but they're produced by motions, tiny motions of electrons, and there's an asymmetry in the way these electron emitted fields interact with each other based on the angle that they're coming into contact. So yeah, you can produce propulsion without the expulsion of any kind of repellent whatsoever already according to these equations. In fact, we could probably do a whole episode just breaking down the Lorentz transform and Einstein's energy mass equivalency and talk about how this stuff is capable of being done right now without having to rewrite modern physics.
Right, I think that's I see all these headline news articles that are talking about the UFO, the physics and the science behind how these things work, and it always says, defies physics or these seem to be the headlines. Even Mark, when he was writing up the business model, he said something about this stuff defies the known laws of physics, and it's like, no, it doesn't. I had to correct him. It's like, this is all with well accepted science and well accepted physics. It's like it's filling in the holes in our models and pulling the pieces together because there's a missing gap.
It does deny the public perception of modern physics. And again, the Wikipedia page, it talks about something to do with mass that has nothing really to do with the observed properties that we see of mass. Mass is not a single unit. It's not fixed. It does change. It can change even when you accelerate something. The Wikipedia article doesn't really talk about any of these properties of mass or where it comes from. It just simply gives you this general explanation, and it's this generalized thing that we're fighting against. This whole idea that what the public has been taught and what we get taught in schools, which is a summary. You guys got to keep in mind, in academia, you're only getting a summarized version of the more complex thing. It's like what Heaviside did with Maxwell's equations. Heaviside took Maxwell's 26 plus equations. He turned them into 4 equations that were engineerable for everyday folks to work with. But those 24 equations are balanced, meaning that there is no asymmetry anywhere within them, because they consider that everything is a closed loop system, and Maxwell's equations consider an open loop system. So you have to go back and look at, the information that I've been taught and the information that I think is mainstream physics. Is it really complete, or are there variables that we are not talking about?
I remember we had to learn, like in the book, it shows Maxwell's equations. It always shows those 4 equations. You get the integral form or the differential form.
And those are Heaviside equations.
But there's a 5th equation that it says in order for all those to work, this 5th equation, which is the continuity equation, must hold true, and that continuity equation is, like what you said, the continuity equation is that factor of the closed loop system versus open loop system. Bingo. Right there.
So that right there, that's the key. And if you can grasp your head around all the other variables that go into creating this open loop and understand them, then you can start to engineer them. And you can specifically generate open loop systems which exploit this property of space and time, which we already recognize to exist.
Right, so this was Oliver Heaviside and Hosea Willard Gibbs. They did a lot of the premier pioneering work. Not the premier pioneering work was really done by Faraday, Michael Faraday, and but these guys took it to mathematics and on a whole nother level with their vector fields and vector calculus, applying vector calculus. That was the key mathematical tool needed to really understand what was going on.
It certainly helped to bring these equations into the 3-dimensional world and allow us to engineer them on that respect.
But it's really hard to find that stuff. I remember I was looking for it years ago. Do you have any links that you could share with people for where they could find something explaining the Oliver Heaviside and the original equations and that whole thing?
There's instead of sending links, I would actually recommend people look up Eric Dollard and just read through his videos, because he does talk specifically on these topics as well, and goes into them. And he's not the only fellow that I've talked to. I haven't talked to Eric Dollard. He's not the only fellow that I've learned from. I've talked to other people in person who also have come to this understanding. Gary Wade, for example, is quite knowledgeable on this, but he's not really interested in talking to people all too much. He does seminars, but man, that was a fascinating story from that guy, and other people who research this stuff. I've heard this same repeated thing again and again and again. Don't look at the equations you're going to find in the books. You need to get the original equations, and you need to understand them. And understanding them, man, oh man, it sucks, because the symbols that these guys used at the time, you have to understand how they're using these symbols, because they mean different things in different equations. So it's a very, very complicated thing, and I'm not that great at it. I'm really not. My specialty is not mathematics. I understand mathematics only to the extent where I have to stress my brain to try to get it. Yeah. But I'd much prefer somebody else that's far better at that stuff to do it. I like to get my hands dirty on experiments. If I'm not soldering something at some point in the day, I'm going to feel pretty much underwhelmed. So
yep.
That's the constant battle of the engineer, I suppose.
Yeah, I hear that. I feel like I understand math better through physics concepts. I wouldn't be able to just be pure math. I'm more of like a physics guy, and I get the math because I understand the physics more. As
I've told Mark from Falcon in Space, Jeremy's really the guy that can be doing some of these more complicated mathematical equations for us and trying to break them down into layman's terms so that they can be massively applied.
But I have other people that I that know math really good.
Same
that
here.
help me out with that stuff too. So
I got this buddy who I stayed with for a while just to try to work on some scientific gadgets together, and we built quite a few things together. It was great. But this guy scored in the top quarter of 1% of the National Mathematical Aptitude SAT scores, and the stuff that he can understand is way beyond the scope of what my brain is capable of computing.
yeah,
So I've had a great time learning from him. No,
yeah,
sorry, Dan. I do not actually have any kind of degree. I've taught classes, but I've never been classically trained in any of this stuff. It's all self-taught.
nice, man. Well, at least you're getting the good sources, man. It's hard to be self-taught and stay on a straight and narrow path because there's so many diversions and traps. You catch a lot of people and stuff that. But it's all about, you know, how much time you spend in the actual literature and really reading the right materials and the right kind of stuff. But again, the Zenx surface waves, I think, what we were talking about before with it's like, do you need the right material with this resonant effects, and then you need to hit it with the right frequency that will resonate these states and get these oscillations going.
Yeah, let's see. I think I have a patent that's actually relevant to the two, which again talks about the integer spins. And let me just see if I can pull that up here. Sorry, I've got I'm weeding through like 1,000 patents right now, just trying to get my hands on this piece. Just continue on as I look for this.
Yep. No worries. So the stuff I've been finding on these polariton condensates, you know, these exotic condensates of states of matter, condensed matter physics is seems to have a lot to do with this stuff. And room temperature superfluidity in the polariton condensate. I actually got this from reading the Wikipedia article on polaritons, and this was down in the links. This paper was down in the links on Wikipedia, and I was immediately like, holy crap! They found room temperature superfluidity in these types of condensates, and this was from 2017. And I still post this like once a month just to remind people, because this is important, you know, when you can have room temperature superconductors and superfluids anywhere, it's a key factor. And even Michio Kaku said, like, in one of the things they asked him about anti-gravity, he said, when we create room temperature superconductors, then that's when we'll have anti-gravity. And this is pretty freaking close to it, which, man, I really wish there was more people out there talking about this stuff, man.
You ain't kidding on that, man. It's been a heck of a time trying to find anybody to talk about this stuff. You guys are some of the first that I've had in-depth conversations with. Heck, I had a conversation with Falcon Space for 7.5 hours the other day. It was nuts. We went into a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It was great.
Well, how is Mark doing? Mark, you want to jump on? Are you watching there? I don't know if he wants to jump on Skype with us. Let me just text him and see if he's available. He's probably watching.
That'd be cool if he was.
Yeah. Anyways, I'll give Falcon Space another bump, because we're in the process of setting up a lab right now down in New Jersey and getting some. We've gotten some funds together already. We raised about $700 for this for lab equipment, and we bought a bunch of stuff already. And man, I'm starting to get a headache.
I had one of those earlier, almost 14 hours. It finally went away.
I don't
get them. Rating them on now.
I don't even get them, like, ever, which is weird, you know? It's like I feel like Bob Lazar on Joe Rogan. Like, suddenly I have a migraine.
They're beaming signals into your head, man. Where's your tinfoil
They're like,
hat?
I need to put my tinfoil hat on. They're beaming me. They're like, this guy knows too much. We're gonna get in
Hey,
his
man, if your headache suddenly
brain.
goes away after you put the foil over, I guess that would be something.
That would be something, right? It's better than aspirin,
Nah, you gotta sit underneath the pyramid.
right?
I'm not necessarily ripping on that. There are things to subtle energy, but there's more weeds than there are plants.
MK Ultra, man, they're zapping me with mind frequencies and stuff,
Just wait for the voices.
right?
13 patents. We've even experimented around with it, and it totally works. Yeah, you get voices in your head.
They can implant voices in your head. I remember reading that stuff. Let me see. What was the
No, we
patents
tried
on?
it. We tried it, and it works. It's not that hard either. You just modulate the output energy of a microwave magnetron you pull out of your kitchen microwave, and you modulate the input voltage going to the cathode that's heated, and you have to have an isolated cathode circuit that can provide the necessary 4 volts at 10 amps. But yeah, you keep it hot and you modulate it, and you aim it at somebody at quite a distance, and they start to perceive the modulated audio signals that you're transmitting, and it's really not hard to build. Kind of scary, actually, how not hard to build it is.
Hmm. I'd love to see it where, man, that sounds cool as hell, and I would love to go down there and have you put like a voice in my head. I would totally like.
And that's not even the beginning of the kind of stuff I would show you if you ever did come down here and visit.
Hell yeah! What's next UFO road trip, Dan? You on for this, man? Let's jump. Where are you? You're in Michigan, right? You said.
Me?
Where are you?
Me, I'm in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. All right. Well, Michigan's on the way. We'll stop by Bob Lazar's United Nuclear on the way out to Wisconsin.
That'd be interesting.
Oh yeah, huh? Imagine what he'd do. He'd lock the door and run as soon as he's seen me coming. Man, he knows who we are.
Bob, I have a few questions for you if you don't mind answering.
So apparently, all right, according to what I've been gathering is that he's. I don't want to say too much about this either. I should just wait, huh, Dan? And we got some scoop. I gotta wait. I don't want to get off on a Bob Lazar tangent, man, because like.
I know we all have our opinions on Lazar.
I gotta do another video with Dan on that, man. We gotta talk about that. But Bob's moving from Michigan. He bought a new house and he's selling his house. His house has been up on the sale for a couple months, and he's moving out of Michigan, so he won't be there for long. He's packing up United Nuclear. I don't know if he's gonna keep the company, sell the company, get rid of it. I don't know. But man, there's apparently he bought a $1 million house too, and that's where he's moving. But
yeah, he's not been too bad for himself, has he?
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's quite a trek. It's quite a trek for me to get to you guys when we go out and do that con. And it's going to be quite a trek for you guys to get over here. And the sad thing is I don't really have a full laboratory set up anymore to show you, but I do have plenty of experiences to give you. There's with the current process of building that uniform or laminar magnetic flux generator that we're working on for the replication of the Elzephon experiments. That's something that I may actually have to drive up because it's heavy. It's probably going to weigh like 50, 60 pounds. I imagine shipping it will be a pain. So I don't know. Maybe it's something worth visiting the lab and staying over a week or two. And I would like to have a bunch of other things to bring at that point too, as well as a properly designed TT Brown replication thruster that doesn't have leakage currents and is not arcing over.
Yeah, I've been talking the same thing with my other lab guy who I've been running this stuff by with, and he's been saying the same stuff. Those setups we had in some of our experiments, man, they really need to be streamlined and tweaked to be more super efficient and
I mean, I'm doing some of this stuff in an apartment and I'm not having any of those problems at all. So it's just a matter of understanding the insulation that you're using, and you guys are using some materials that aren't really quite suitable for it. It's no criticism. It's just this kind of stuff that you'll find out as you go, and you'll find better materials to use.
Yeah, I also suggested using coaxial cable for the leads, so that way you can kind of reduce the noise, any kind of noise or other effect. Also electrical effects of because you're dealing with that high of a voltage in the wire. You'll have effects on the wire itself, and having a shielded wire will kind of minimize that.
And Mark goes to Milwaukee every night, really? Yeah, you want to hang out and do some anti-grav stuff, Mark?
Yeah, dude.
If you're local.
Mark's a good dude. I talk to him a bunch. He's a friend of mine on Facebook. That's a different. It's a different awesome. Mark. It's not Mark. The other Mark in New Jersey.
No, it's not Falcon. But no, either way, I would if he's local and he wants to. If people are local and they want to join up and talk about this stuff, yeah, I'm pretty well down for it. It helps to even if it's just for me talking about the ideas that I don't know that well, to figure out what parts I don't know and have people question me like, well, what do you mean by that? I'm like, oh, geez, I guess I really have a lack of knowledge there. I need to learn more. It's all very useful.
You know, I definitely, maybe we'll plan a trip and we'll go out to Wisconsin sometime and meet up, man. Because I'd like to tour the Schlitz factory.
Dan wants to tour the Harley plant, so that's something that's totally possible.
Yeah, the Harley plant. There you go.
They moved most of the Harley production out of Milwaukee, unfortunately. There are Harley museums now, but they've moved some into Germantown and the surrounding areas. So it's Milwaukee is not really the best catalyst for good business.
Yeah, you ever drank Schlitz before?
It's hard to get out here, but yeah, we can get it in Illinois, no problem.
Crazy. It's like, yeah. Anyways, what were you? I want to talk about. I wanted to talk about. So the experiments we want to set up for Alzafan and Bifel Brown, I really want to wrap those two up just to get us a good base and, just to have some stuff under our belt. I'm putting together a kind of, I've been working on the Hover Brothers site, but I'm not sure what I want to do with it now because Hover Brothers is kind of like not there anymore. And it's technically like an LLC that's a partnership between me and Ken Griggs, who left that team. And I want to. I'm working right now to redo the website and get a new website up and kind of get a goal together. But I wanted to put all the theory and the experiments together, like all the different theories and different like combined with theory and experiment. And I got to do something about this site because it's so slow. I want something that's really fast to load. This is why I don't like WordPress. This is why I did my other website in just HTML, because it's like it's all slimmed down. No, it's fast, which I don't like about this. But I've started to put some stuff together, and I'm going to put together more as I go, because I want to get like I want to basically make a database of all like your anti-gravity stuff, all my anti-gravity stuff, all the papers, and like a backup, backups of all the stuff. So not just the links to where they can find it, but like a hard backup where they can download the stuff right on our site. If it ever disappears, we'll have like backups.
Well, you've always got torrents. I mean, that's an option. I'm pretty sure everybody on here is familiar with that, and it's pretty much impossible to kill those things. So.
Yeah. It would be cool to.
We could do a periodic update every 3 months or so, and it would be the same kinds of folders. People just delete their old ones and update the new ones. We would have more patents in there that are relevant, that people should be reading and understanding. Patents are actually a great teaching tool, too. They're one of the best teaching tools I've found so far. I'd much rather read any patent any day than some college textbook, because you're going to get more knowledge about the kind of stuff you need to learn.
Yeah.
Since there's so much to learn, you kind of got to quantify it down to what specifically can I process today and how much can I learn only about the things that I need to know in order to do this. But yeah, there's huge databases, and I'm sure if we all combined, we would have quite the arsenal of knowledge.
Oh yeah, with the people we're putting together, we already have on our team. It's going to be a force. There's no one else out there currently doing like what we're doing on this level. TTSA is, kind of saying that they want to do this, but they haven't like backed it up with the real technical, going into like detail on anything. The way that I've been really trying to and going at it, and interested to meet more people out there and get more people on our team and stuff. But yeah, this, if we could do something like that, like a file archive or a torrent, yeah, where people can, everyone, then that would encourage other people to contribute too, because we could get people to come on and drop stuff there that, you know, it could even
Yeah,
be.
I have nothing against people submitting information, submitting other people's documents if they want stuff that's not already in that database. And eventually, if it gets real large, we can start to split it into categories like the MHD or V cross B field technologies, the electrostatic field technologies, the ion propulsion technologies. There's no problem of splitting things into categories and just allowing those folders that people can download to be reasonably sized so they can get what they specifically want to research.
So yeah, back to the whole thing about Phoenix theory and Ken's theory on gravity too. I did release that one paper. I got to put it back up because I just got my uploads back because I want to put the whole thing together to back on Phoenix theory and some stuff up there, including a more complete particle map of his whole particle map and all that stuff. Very interesting stuff going on with Phoenix theory, but it's a whole. I got to get that CRT paper back up. That's the combinatoric relativity theory. Combinatoric relativity theory. And talking about combinatorial spacetimes. This is D. Hillman. Really interesting take on discrete physics, discrete math, and the nature of space-time. I think Ken was onto something with some of the stuff that he was talking about. You know, I wouldn't have partnered and started Hover Brothers with him if I didn't think he was, and you know, didn't think he knew his shit or what he was talking about. But he never released the papers 2 and 3, and I don't know if he ever intends to or what's going on with him. But I'd really love to know what is in the rest of his theory, the important parts that pull it all together with combinatorics and stuff. I just want to point on a couple things about Ken's theory is that without going into too much detail on it, but it's where's the stuff? So he was. I'm gonna put together a better page on this. It's too much for me to really break down for people right now and get all the sources together because I'm gonna be searching for people's names that I don't know how to spell right now. It's gonna be So if you guys don't know what happened with Ken, we raised like $15,000 through PayPal to start the Hover Brothers company when we first launched, and because of that hype video that I put together, that still get people commenting on it on YouTube saying that it's fake, that's fake, because it goes, I don't know, the way I put the video together and everything. But I want to redo that video as a hype video, same kind of style hype video for Falcon Space, and take out the stuff about Ken and Hover Brothers, and not just make it about his theory or one theory, but testing all these theories with a lab and experiments, because there's too many theories right now. Is what I feel is that I get lost in all these different interpretations or understandings of this stuff, but from what I can see, it's definitely got something to do with quantum entanglement, and also these I believe it could be polaritons or a type of strongly polarized fields, one way or the other, whatever you want to call them. It's basically you have to reach high enough energies where you can polarize that vacuum and pull these particle-antiparticle pairs out of the vacuum. I think it has something to do with that. But again, we have so many theories and so many ideas that we want to test. It's really about getting in a lab and getting a full-time crew together to really, or not even a full-time crew. We could outsource a lot of this experiments to other labs if we had more lab people and more technicians, which I want to talk about too and work on. But then again, it's hard because how do you know you can trust people? Because you might have like the U.S. It would be so easy for them to just put a troll in our midst and be like, have this wicked nice laboratory and have him be like, yeah, we're collaborating, we're doing all these experiments, and this was negative and this was negative, so but that could be the stuff we should be looking into, but he's given us negative results, but we don't know because we didn't do those experiments ourselves. We're just relying on this other source of information to do our experiments for us. You know what I mean? It's like, where do you end with this? It's like you have to do some of the replications yourself, or either that or you wait till you get a positive result from somebody, or what I believe is that there's other universities, and from what I've gathered, there's other people at universities that have gotten positive results, and they have not published these results. They're afraid to go forward because, of what happens. And
there's going to be a lot of opposition to face.
Right, there's going to be too much opposition to face. It's almost like we want to reach out to these people who have done this research and have this stuff and be the lightning rod for them, so that we'll face the opposition. We'll take the brunt of it, and they can kind of just be the source of the idea, and then after it's all said and done, and it's the opposition's over. It is crazy because what's going on right now, I believe, with TTSA is that someone in the intelligence community and the government knows that this technology is not far from being released.
It's getting out there. People are doing experiments now that are demonstrating simple principles which are all related, and it has yet for everything to be brought onto a system. A good anti-grav system or a reactionless propulsion system, they don't exist as a single entity. They're a combination of various technologies, and right now we've seen all the proponents of each individual technology demonstrated, and those things are publicly available. What we haven't seen is somebody take all of them into a single unit and create a system that produces a thrust or something else like that that's useful to us in achieving the goal. But I don't think that we're that far away from doing it. And the reason is, if the information is out there already, all it takes is somebody bright enough and dedicated enough with the correct funding to put this stuff together. And that, of course, is going to require a team, because no one person has all the time in the world to do it. No one person has all the energy in the world to do it. But if we get people that are capable of working independently, that want to do this as much as we do, then I don't think it's really all that far away. Just look at the OTC flying craft stuff, and that's a whole story on its own. But if you believe any of it, they started a group of a decent number of people, and they were shut down after creating their, third successful flying craft. And they got too much public attention because they started to demonstrate this stuff like a magic show and show people, hey, these things work. So yeah, a team can do it. The way that it needs to be released to the public has to be in a non-disruptive or a minimally disruptive way. Like, we're not trying to shut down industries. We're not trying to screw with the economy that's currently functioning in this country. We need to introduce the stuff in a way that doesn't completely disrupt people's lives and cause major shock, and investors to be scared of continuing to invest companies that are working on technologies that aren't maybe quite on this par. Like, for example, SpaceX. They're doing great things. They finally did what should have been done probably 40 years ago, which is recovering pieces of rockets instead of just tossing them into the sea. Tremendous savings, right? It's finally a viable economical model, and the guy's been able to do it with a significantly lower amount of resources. Will they be invalidated if anti-grav comes out? My thinking is, if it comes out instantly, they're instantly invalidated. Investors stop investing because they say, oh, there's this brand new thing. If it comes out slowly, SpaceX integrates the technology, and now it's industry-wide. So they don't have to fear, and we don't have to worry about disruptive industrial technologies. It's introduced slow enough where people can adapt to it, and other companies can also have access to this tech and start to implement it, so they're not completely shut down and people don't lose jobs. I think it's important to be conscious and aware and careful about how we do this stuff, because we all have to take part in this economic system, and if we create major disruptions, it's not going to be good for any of us. So we need to be very cautious and slowly release information in a way that gets people used to the idea without just flat out shutting down industries.
Right. So a couple of comments I wanted to go back to real quick was someone said something about, well, we could outsource all our lab work to China. And I thought that was interesting because I just read a couple of reports on, the quantum revolution that's taking place and where all the patents have been in the past, decade. and China has got the rest of the world beat, including the U.S. on the amount of patents that they've filed for quantum technology. So here's the amount of patents since 1983 to 2018. U.S. has 248. China has almost 500, almost twice as many, 492, which is pretty crazy. I'll post this article in the chat here for other people to go check out. So China's very close. There's even some speculation that China has and is developing the same technology, the same type of skin coatings and stuff too. So there's a lot of speculation going on whether it's going to be the U.S. or China. They'll be the first one to really disclose or reveal this, and I don't think China's just as tight-lipped about their information and technology as too. So
yeah, in the comments, by the way, Beta Scientist, yeah, he's right. I think there is no gravity. He says it is. No, it's moving. Probably gravitational momentum. He's definitely right. There is really no gravity. There is a transference of momentum through electrokinetic means.
There's no way that you'd be able to tell the difference or understand. Oh, what did I have my stream might have pumped out. I think my whole
it did. We lost audio for about 15 seconds, and I think most of the people in here had to refresh their page in order to get the audio back.
Crazy. If anyone's still with us, sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, just keep on trying to refresh. Keep on trying to refresh until you get it.
I got a little bump in my that must have been on my end. I don't know. Someone's interrupting my connection or tracing it back as we speak. They don't like what we're talking about here.
I must have said something that pissed somebody off. Oh well.
All right, what you were talking about, what gravity was, man. Nah, I don't know.
Well, I guess I'd better say it again then. Hey, I don't know when you guys got cut off. Somebody in the comments tell me what was the last thing that you heard before we disappeared for a while there.
The last thing I heard before you cut off was you were explaining there is no really such thing as gravity. It's just.
And you hear the part about the.
So interesting. The paper I referenced earlier was the connection between inertial mass and gravitational mass, and its connection with the 0 point energy field. Very interesting.
I gotta address Beta Scientist again. He says gravitational momentum. Gravitational momentum is a combination of two different forces. It's the derivative force, but gravitational momentum can't be calculated on its own. You have to have the other two parameters, which is the motion of the electric field through space and the amplitude of the electric field through space. That's where you're going to end up getting your gravitational force from. And so the momentum is contained in those two factors. So if you look up the one, you're just going to get the derivative. You need to understand how a traveling electric field through space creates magnetic flux, and how the magnetic flux versus its amplitude of the electric field causes a relativistic mass equivalency, which does have an attraction or produces gravitational-like effects as if it was a solid mass, even though it's just a traveling electromagnetic field.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, this is it again. It's not rewriting the laws of physics. It's just kind of figuring them out finally, and filling in some of these gaps in our understanding of some of these things. Anyways, I'm starting to fall asleep here, and
can't blame you, man.
And I want to maybe hit the hay soon. Yeah, the Russians they're not ranked on there as far as the quantum stuff, man. They're not doing what China's doing as far as the revolution is concerned with filing patents. They're not even on this list. Japan and South Korea ranks higher than Russia, which is interesting.
Scary, yeah.
The Russians just aren't into this, man. They're not seemingly not on this on the level that China and the U.S. are.
Well, they might be. They're just not releasing it. They were releasing it in the 60s and 70s, even up into like the 80s. We had airplanes traveling across that area that had seen strange aerial phenomena, and I think they were sort of advertising what they could do. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what happened to that. My guess is they never stopped. They just simply put it down into the point where it's not being advertised anymore. I think they made their point. We can do it, everybody. World, look, we can do it. Nothing more needs to be said.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I like the Russian-designed flying spear craft. The completely round, I think they were like 10 to 12 foot in diameter craft where somebody sits in the upper half, and you've got an arrangement of Tesla tech at the top and bottom and a ion production system. So they're very good for inter-atmospheric travel. I do like that design. I think it's a kind of cool design. But never did try to build something quite like that.
Dude,
So we know they were doing it. I have patents for that too, by the way, if you want them. They were in that document if you just search through it, in that huge collection of patents I sent you.
Yes, I have to go through that. In fact, I gotta get my
I'm adding more every day.
Yeah, we gotta get it. I gotta get my Google Drive cleaned out so I can upload stuff to it. Cause right now it's like 500 gigs over capacity or something. I gotta get a bunch of stuff off there and clean. Maybe not 500. I think it's like 5 gigs over capacity, maybe 50 gigs. We'll see. I got a lot of stuff on there.
Talking about tachyons, and that would go into the what's it? Geez, who's the guy that did the experimentation with the beetle wings? Not Viktor.
Grebennikov.
That's the guy, yeah. Yeah, so Grebennikov claims that tachyons are the source of his propulsion for his flying platform, if anybody believes that story. Pretty fantastic thing. I think it's my favorite anti-grav conspiracy device I've seen so far. Grebennikov's tiny little foldable suitcase flying platform. I mean, how cool will that thing be to have? Now, legend has it that the guy ended up developing some kind of foot and leg cancer because of the exposure near his feet where the source of this anti-gravitational energy was, so I suppose experiment at your own risk. But the idea of a tiny little platform that fits in a suitcase that you can just basically take wherever you want, I think that's the greatest idea ever. I totally want one.
Yeah.
But I just don't want foot cancer.
I know. It just seems a little too good to be true. But anyways, I'm gonna go and wrap this up for the night, and we're gonna hit it hard again next week. So tune in, guys. Thanks for watching, and thanks for all the great links and sharing information. It's always great meeting new people, and be sure to send this to all your physics professors and physics friends too, to get them.
And once again, guys, if you have implementable or engineerable technology, something that you think, hey, somebody that was qualified could build this, again, join the technicians on Facebook. Or email me at jointhetechnicians@gmail.com, and I would love to see those documents, and I'll add them to the database that will eventually be uploaded. So, please do share. Please do share. And thanks, guys, for tuning in today. It's been great.
Heck yeah. Thanks for coming on, Jeremiah, and always a pleasure talking to you.
Over and out. Take it easy, guys.